Yeah, you should get.
Warming up,
Should be okay.
and I am not yet muted. Killing my audio.
Yeah, I haven't set internet priority, so let me fix that. To squeeze every last bit out of our internet.
Mm-hmm. This video has been annoying me to check it out.
Oh no, I have a problem.
What?
My computer's on the wrong network. So I can't prioritize internet. Oh well.
Wanna start over?
No, it's okay. Let's not jinx it further. I'm on Garapatanet guest. For some reason. Everything is cool when you're part of a team. Everything is awesome when you're living a dream.
You'd think the fact that we do it practically every other day, the system would realize I'm always looking for that specific group to share the message to.
Well, that's because it's Facebook AI and not Google.
Yeah.
And then people just complain that Google feels creepy. But it's creepy because it's right. We're just resharing links as usual as we get started.
Okay, reshared. Tags are sent. Message is given. Damn you, notification, you still keep appearing.
There's
Okay.
no escaping notification.
Yeah. I'm on to you, Facebook. When you are use the settings to customize your experience. Me shutting down every single option that gives notifications, and they still appear. I'm on to you.
And we are helpless to do anything about it. It's just what it is. So we're gonna start in a bit, but yeah, if you're watching, feel free to comment so that we know you're there. And then it will help the live stream if you share the link and all that fun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, it's so weird. On the back end, our Restream Studio interface has changed. Some things that were on the left are on the right, and vice versa. And it's like
After months of all these issues with Restream, let's hope whatever this is, it will help fix it.
What is that?
You cross your fingers,
But
but
why-
you cross your arms.
It's like Wakanda forever. The luck symbol.
So it's a Friday show. We'll see how long this will be, depending on how many people end up joining us.
Yeah, if we're just talking to the ether, then we'll just kind of roll with it, I guess. Why am I on this network? I wish to understand. And then if I switch, it might toggle, so I'll just do it later. I noticed it earlier and I didn't change it.
I don't know. For all I know, I'm also on that network. Maybe we're all on that network.
Nope. You're still connected with Mother. Hello, Mother.
Hmm. Okay,
What?
I'm in my office account.
Okay.
We're so not.
Not ideal.
We're so not in the jive right now.
It's been a long week, guys. It's been a long week. Hello, Mitch. Thanks for joining.
Hey, Mitch.
Yeah, we're in the super loud Pride t-shirts. But we figured we should like be a bit more formal because we're talking about corporations. That song has no direction. It's just what it is.
Mhm.
So it seems there are like maybe two people watching. One who is silent, and I have no idea who you are. Oh, we got someone else. But yeah, if you are watching, please, we would appreciate to hear from you. So please comment. If not, at the very least, like the video and share,
Mhm.
and that would be cool too. Right, Mitch? We got ties. These are technically suits.
They were a gift,
They were a gift.
so we're
We
very,
would never buy these for ourselves.
but we're very happy to still wear them as a thank you of the support we receive.
Yeah, and I'll admit it works for the show. It's definitely. And then Toby has yet to figure out how to align with our rainbow.
There.
He needs to stand up.
There!
And that's our screenshot for the cover. I don't know.
Okay, I think we can start.
Okay.
So we'll be starting. Please enjoy our intro.
Oh yeah! Baduy Pride!
Hello, everyone. This is Toby.
And this is Rocky.
And if it's your first time here, welcome to Baduy Pride, our little space on the internet where we talk about anything we want.
It is completely unscripted and not entirely accurate, but at least it's honest. Join us as we talk about everything and anything random live.
And if it's not your first time here, thank you so much for joining us again. It's a Friday, and we've committed to having Pride-related topics for this entire month because this
But
month
it's
is Pride Month.
So yeah, a little self-explanatory. But then yeah, it's not that easy though. It's like I don't know. We want to be generally optimistic.
We also, I think we're also falling into the trap of not wanting to tread on topics we talked about before.
That is true because
But-
we have talked about many things.
But at the same time, I'm starting to realize it's not that we can't talk about topics which touched on before. It's just that we have to be, I guess, we'll have to review that to see how we might have changed or what might have added to the thoughts. And
Maybe, and as we are over 200 episodes into this thing, we have a lot of episodes to go through.
So this
Thanks
is
for Mitch though for joining, and Tristan over on YouTube for joining. Thank you.
this is our 218th episode, and our topic is all about corporations and pride.
Yeah, and generally, Baduy Pride tries to be again pretty hopeful, optimistic,
Mhm.
but not necessarily sugarcoating. So we're gonna see how we handle this without getting too negative about it.
So if you're new to the channel, know that this is a very interactive show. We can't see who you are watching. We know there's a number of you. Please share in the comments whether you're on YouTube or Facebook. We will see the comments. We will incorporate them when we can. And let's get the show started.
So,
Corporations.
what
we're-
are corporations?
What we're wearing is pretty much an example of how corporations and pride intersect at certain points of the year.
Well, I guess the rainbow has become a very recognizable symbol of the LGBTQI plus pride movement, regardless of which origin you want to subscribe to. But at the same time, it's become sort of the easy way to kind of claim that you're sort of dancing into pride, or maybe not, and dancing on the edge. And that's what we kind of want to tackle today, and how June being Pride Month, you get a lot of companies that try to ride on the momentum and
Yes.
sort of treating it like a holiday season, like Easter or like Christmas, where if it's Christmas, then we should do red and green.
Mhm.
So if it's Pride Month, we should do rainbows. So there is that. Now there is the caveat though that, admittedly, I don't think pride washing or whatever you want to call it, queer baiting, pride pandering, I don't know,
Mhm.
um, isn't necessarily that prevalent in the Philippines because of the perception of very traditional, almost Christian, almost Puritan values at times. So, in terms of like safe, quote unquote, marketing speak, especially when you talk about very broad advertising, um, there doesn't necessarily feel like there's a lot of returns for
Mhm.
doing pride campaigns. And in the past few years, we typically see certain types of commercials that have sort of LGBT mentions, implications, or characters, but don't necessarily reflect a full-on pride marketing campaign. Or we see weird things like YouTube only
Mhm.
TVCs that generate a lot of good buzz for them maybe on social media, but you tend to notice they also don't make it to broadcast television. So which is a statement, sort of a statement in itself.
Mhm.
And we'll try to cite a few examples, but admittedly, if you search for like casual like advertising analysis on pride marketing campaigns,
Mhm.
you're not going to see a lot focused on the Philippines. You're going to see more about the US and other Western countries
Mhm.
that are a lot noisier about this sort of thing.
Now, when you think about pride, pink washing, as some of them call it, or pride washing attempts, um, there are certain patterns that you will notice, which give you a hint on how far the company is willing to go to show the support.
Mm.
For some, for example, they play it safe and just stick to the rainbow. They'll show a rainbow element somewhere. They'll toss in a message or statement about, we're all special, or we're all in this together, or something like that, and they'll leave it at that.
Embrace diversities,
Mhm.
maybe, and that might be pushing it too far.
And while it's easy to immediately see those examples as negative, they're obviously just riding on the bandwagon, or they're obviously just trying to cash in on the on the pink dollar, or so to speak. I always still feel,
Say pink peso.
yeah, pink peso too.
Pink peso.
I'm always cautious to think of such initiatives as automatically just riding along,
Mm.
because one, we have to keep in mind that depending on where you are in the world, being more blatant about support is not something you can easily do.
Yeah.
And some companies um, are less capable of taking that risk than others. And in as much as we would love to see all companies be brave enough to speak out and call for equality and speak, for pride, for what it really stands for, the reality is not everyone can. And for some, that might be the most they can do.
Yeah, and that's where I feel like where the Philippines is from a
Mhm.
market
Yes.
perspective. That we're not a country where doing was just where there is a guaranteed or a significant
Mhm.
like marketing or monetary benefit to doing a pride themed marketing
Yes.
campaign, because it's more likely you're going to get backlash for it
Mhm.
than rewards. And that's why we don't see a lot of mass market pride campaigns by Philippine companies. If ever, you might see stuff on social, or any
Mhm.
digital format where it's a smaller subsegment of their core audience. But then when it comes to the big channels like radio, TV, you may not see as much.
Mhm.
And Andre is here and says, "It looks like I have a very long cape." And yes.
Another approach many companies do is finding pride themed or pride related special releases or products that they're suddenly um, unleashing out. For the more common ones, you have them releasing a product line that suddenly now features the rainbow in a certain area. For others, it's suddenly expanding their product line to have something they don't normally have in order to jump into the pride narrative. Um, there was, for example, a certain clothing store that is very well known for releasing all these different products. They have finally released disinfectant as part of their product line, and lo and behold, it's in the rainbow colors.
Mm.
So yes, let's kill germs with pride themed products.
Hey, Rehan. So, and then I'm trying. I know. In the meantime, we're scrambling to like also find examples on the back end.
On
And,
other similar examples, you then have some that try to carry the message, whether they feature characters who are not heterosexual, or whether they try to involve stories that then hint at something beyond the expected binary. These are hit and miss, because you do have some companies that they try their hardest, but they still slip into making it the punchline, or they try to tell an interesting story, but then you realize they're not really doing anything to say anything about the topic. They're just using it as a sudden twist, or as an unexpected moment. And it's moments like this that I feel, you know, well, I guess you really didn't want to show your support, and you just wanted to make it look like you did.
mm. So Tristan said will ask locally, does it translate to more business from the community if a business or product markets towards LGBTQIA plus? And at the same time, I'm not sure, and I know that um, uh, in terms of like some of the organizations that I've interacted with or
Mhm.
followed on social, there have been regular discussions of the power of what is known as the pink peso, or like if the community does put its wallet behind particular brands or causes that support the community, um, then it could have impact. But then at the same time, I don't think we are very good at that sort of collective
Mhm.
action from a financial perspective. And we have a lot of companies who have inconsistent track records when it comes to dealing with the community, dealing with LGBTQI members from an employee employer relationship
Mhm.
perspective. But then people don't really care because they like the product or they like the
Mhm.
food or they like the service.
And vice versa, you then have people who would want to support it, but it's just beyond their liquidity as far as how much they can offer support.
Mhm.
You have people who are expecting certain celebrities or certain influential people in higher levels of influence and reach, and in many ways, much more budget and lose money in their pockets to show their support, but they don't speak up. They never really make an effort to make an appearance. So there's that, when you see these campaigns happen, but then you don't hear any support from people who could have helped boost the signal further. You can't help but wonder, does it really make a difference here? I
So
mean, I mean, even Pride March itself, we've seen a number of years where we go there, and despite the numbers of people who are there to support it, when you kind of hope to see some of the more celebrity people, because the celebrity people do help boost the signal really far. They do help, in lack of a better word, normalize it for people who don't go to Pride marches to see that it's something that they should open their eyes to. But you don't see them there, so there is that frustration of. So I guess you're comfy because we're still calling for this.
yeah, so it's that I mean we can't help but admit that the country does have a very strong sort of endorser mindset, that we are
Mhm.
very very susceptible, or at least there is a significant population that supports endorsements by celebrities and public officials in
Mhm.
terms of marketing speak, and we don't see that a lot come Pride, when a lot of like the very famous sort of members of the LGBT
Mhm.
community
Okay, we're back.
So nothing has changed. We still have these connection issues despite the change in the Restream UI. Thanks so much, Restream, who blames it on our internet. So I guess thank you, PLDT. So going back to kind of discerning, I guess one thing that always gives me pause is that if we, one, pride campaigns are rare in this country. Andre was asking, how do we feel about memes that say that by July, all companies are less LGBT friendly again. There's some degree of truth in this,
They wouldn't be memes if there weren't truth behind it.
but I feel like that's a more Western perspective than a local one because we don't see a lot of support to begin with.
Yes.
And then to take a step back, I always like when I think about any advertising along these lines, I try to think about consistency, or you think about the bigger picture. Like, what do we know about this corporation?
And I will stress right now, the bigger picture is not Twitter.
Oh yeah, Twitter and other social media platforms are literally echo chambers that, because their goal is to keep you engaged and viewing more content on the feed.
The algorithm will support those that seem to be related to the topic you're talking about, or have more engagement whether or not the topic that is being engaged with has merit.
Or just making sure that they show you more of the content that you're
Similar.
already engaging with,
Yes.
and thus like-minded people get the same content and thus feel like they are in a very supported or similar-minded community, when in fact it's just the algorithm skewing you towards people who are like you in terms of your online behavior. So when you go to things like Pride March is a good example of like real world application. And if if you look at what types of companies actually sponsor or pledge money to support the Pride March, or even better,
Participate.
have
A representation.
have corporate representation at the march, then you will rarely see local companies at the Pride March. You will more likely see BPOs
Yes.
and other international companies who have global non-discrimination and pride-related programs and policies in place that kind of make it trickle down. So you normally see call centers and other BPO type companies who have large contingents at Pride March, but you don't see your average companies. Where are the Ayalas? Where are the SMs? Where are the big fast food chains? You don't typically see that. So that's like always like number one for me. Like a company that does not meaningfully participate and engage in things like Pride March and other political demonstrations geared towards driving, supporting, fighting for LGBTQI plus rights in the country, really don't get a lot of mileage out of me. Then they're just doing clever brand speak and whatnot. And this particular June, I feel like we haven't actually seen a lot of Pride related marketing from local companies. I think the one that mainly kind of stands out was like early in the month, or was that late May? I can't remember. Was it Greenwich? It was Greenwich, right? Who had that weird,
Commercial.
yeah, which
The guy proposing and
the guy serenading.
yeah, and then the twist. It's a twist. It was a twist.
And then a lot of people were like supporting it because they felt it was representation, and then they felt like the main point of the joke, so to speak, is just about people who aren't liked by their crushes back. But then I don't know. Personally, it made me feel uncomfortable.
So the tricky part of that is, one, representation is valid. It's good. As mentioned in one of the blogs I read, in as much as we hate the fact that many companies just ride on the pink bandwagon and go pink washing during the Pride Month, it still is a world of difference to walk through, let's say, a mall. And if you're someone who has not come to terms with your identity, or you're still someone who's trying to find where you fit in the world, and you look around and you see that the place, even if it's just superficial at that moment, is showing a world that's more open, that's more willing to have someone different. That is huge. That cannot be ignored. But to rely and to be satisfied with just that would be a disservice to everything else that we should be fighting for. And that's why, while representation is good, it should not be enough. It should not be something we end up going, well, at least they represented us.
Yeah, then that's tokenism.
Because then, if you look at, like, say, that commercial, for example, so yeah, it's about crush, but it's not crush back. But you realize the root of that, it falls under that really annoying staple where people say, sayang ka, kasi bakla ka. And that's a terrible thing to normalize. That's a terrible thing to still support at this point in time we're in. You know, guy sings well, girl super crushes on him, and in the end, the main message is sayang he prefers pala the other guy. Because it wasn't told in the guy's perspective; it was told in the girl's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Had it had the commercial been the guy talking to the girl, and then the girl gets, oh yeah, it's not for me, but then the whole time it was the guy's perspective, then it becomes less a sayang, but more a sorry, it's not you who I like, and it changes the message, it changes the presentation.
Yeah, I know when I was thinking about it, like if they really wanted the message to be just about hindi ka crush ng crush mo, then why not make it a guy serenading a guy
Yes.
who is like the friend or the friend zone person,
Mm.
and then you pala it's about him wanting another guy.
And obviously, they didn't do that because it being a guy was the twist.
Yeah.
See? Another example would be the LGBT sandwich that was released by Marks and Spencer's.
Oh,
The lettuce,
that was terrible.
guacamole, bacon, and tomato sandwich. How insensitive can you get to, for something that we're fighting to have more visibility and equality? Not only do you usurp it, but you turn it into something even less than what it is. Maybe it was humorous. Maybe some would say, hey, at least the terminology is being bandied around in this major store chain or something. But again, the message is very much lost in that approach. It cheapens what Pride could be about.
Yeah, Tristan mentioned gay representation is usually a cis male, and that's true. And then that's a lot of the sort of LGBT quote unquote representation during Pride Month, in from a local marketing perspective, tends to limit themselves to just representing gay men and not really representing the whole spectrum. Only because I guess it's easier to understand,
I
and it
feel
lends itself to jokes well.
I also feel that's a little bit more rooted to the inherent patriarchal society that we are in terms of the Philippine
There
culture.
is that.
Women are always second class, all the more than for women who are not heterosexual. And then when it comes to the delivering the message, there is that sad invisibility that's cast upon people of more diverse natures, because we keep placing them on specific roles. You have to be the comic relief character.
Mm.
You have to be the angry tomboy who dresses like a guy and wears the cap backwards.
Mm.
We need you to be in that, because if you're not that, we won't use you in our media. And I'm sad that that's the reality of it, and that's why the existing representation of now having more masculine non-straight men is actually still an upward struggle. Um, I know I've had my share of still finding my way in that when I was working on some media stuff in the past. We're in, to represent a gay character, they had to be very effeminate.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
You need to fit into the stereotypes that have been perpetuated in local media, so we can understand the comic relief parlorista gay and not necessarily other parts of the spectrum.
and it's a tricky medium because it's not a one size fits all. A TV series, for example, gives you the breathing room to get to the backstory, to show the character's history and personality and all that. A 30-second spot. Commercials heavily rely on stereotypes to deliver a message.
That's
faster.
true.
And while it is not impossible and it is not inconceivable to deliver much more meaningful messages in a 30-second or a 15-second spot, it does have a bigger expectation and much more work behind it to get it to work right.
Hmm. So there's no perfect formula for it. And then, admittedly, as someone who's been one, I work in digital marketing, so this is sort of part of my life. And then two, as someone who has participated in different events across the years, whether it's pride marches to white parties to, so there's the serious political stuff, there's the lighter fun stuff, and and you're all trying to figure out where you are
Mm.
in the community and how it is, then it's hard not to be a little jaded when the marketing starts rolling up, and then
Yes.
like, here we go again. So my personal regret example to some degree is like when Lego first announced the Everyone is Awesome set.
Hmm.
Because if you just see it as a media mention and just see it like how the news sites were covering it, it felt very classic
Mm.
pink washing scenario. Like we slapped a rainbow onto a set. It's a
Yeah.
very basic construction, but okay. But if you go to the Lego page, at the very least the Lego US page, and you look for the set, there is at lego.com/everyone is awesome
Hmm.
a full page that not only explains the set but also explains what Lego is doing for its employees to advocate for their LGBTQI plus members, and also linked to various independent Lego ideas
Hmm.
designs of other Pride
Yes.
related sets. So then, when I saw that, like, okay, maybe I judged too
Hmm.
quickly, and like initially I was very skeptical about it, but now I'm like, at least I see that they're trying to put their money where their mouth is, and
Yes.
like I'm waiting for it to appear. I'm hoping it'll appear in the official Lego distributor here, which is like through a company called
Hmm.
Banky Bricks. They said it would be arriving third week of June,
Hmm.
but I'm totally gonna buy it.
And
And I don't buy a lot of Lego anymore.
and that's the challenge when it comes to all these Pride related releases. It can be very easy for people to react immediately on something and not see the bigger picture.
Mm.
And sometimes that's the fault of the media body because they didn't showcase it.
Yeah.
And by not showcasing it, then the press releases don't have it. But at the same time, that could be a matter of the press releases themselves. Sometimes they did release it, but as we know in media, um, real estate as far as what word counts or photos you'll have is quite limited, and when they choose to crop things down to get it to a more meaty statement, they'll do that, and we can't really change that. You have, of course, social media, wherein the moment someone speaks up in this very enticing, um, aggravated manner, many jump into that bandwagon without really double checking the roots behind it, or double or cross referencing whether it's a valid perspective.
Mm.
And that unfortunately can, steamroll and snowball into a very difficult position, wherein even if the company had actually bigger motivations behind it, they'll now be painted as, see, now you're changing it, even if it really was that from the start. Or see, now we made the difference, we forced them to do that, even if that really wasn't the case. And for other companies, that has then backfired to, let's play it safe then. Let's
Mm-hmm.
not say it's pride related because we're not in the position to do so. But we cannot ignore the fact that there are the terrible instances when companies do try to capitalize on the Pride Month and don't even bother to consult with people who would better understand why Pride Month is important. The fact remains that there are companies that see it as just another bandwagon to ride on in terms of marketing, because marketing does function that way. If you're in the in, you get eyeballs, good or bad, there's still eyeballs.
Yeah.
And then likewise, you have the other end of the spectrum wherein companies might want to, but the existing systems don't allow it. For example, um, for my benefits, I was asking if I could list you as a beneficiary
Mm.
since we're together. And in as much as the company would want to, Philippines legal code and all that, the insurance companies can't back it in that way. I know BPO companies are able to do so, but many of them use
They
not
just use the power of the size of their
yeah, and
contracts.
they're non-local. They're not really bound by how local things are doing things.
Mm.
So they're kind of able to, you know, This is getting depressing. I'm sorry.
I know, right? It's not Mitch, I think she's trying to say that it froze. I don't know. We can see it moving. You may want to refresh if the video is not moving for you because it looks like we're moving elsewhere. We're looking at YouTube and stuff. Oh, so it's just Mitch's screen. Okay, sorry about that. Hope you can refresh and join in. So, yeah, so I don't necessarily think that pink washing is a really significant problem here. In fact, I don't think most companies pander to the community at all, because we just don't see a lot of engagement and interaction. I mean, when was the last big company that actually did something, I don't know, that had impact on the community? Like they did a special release of a product where the proceeds would, I don't know, go to the home for the golden gays who don't even actually have a home anymore, and all these things. I mean, like, I don't think we've ever really seen anything like it. And then when you look at pride marches, who are the companies you normally see sort of like willing to sponsor? You're more likely to see condom and lubricant brands participating in marketing, the likes of Durex and whatever, Easy, whatever. Um, and then that's all I can remember. I can't remember anyone else. And more probably just smaller, sort of mom and pop level businesses that are owned or operated by members of the community.
Or small independent companies, whether they're the crafty ones in the sense of handcrafted goods and stuff that they'd like to show and support, sell and support in the community, to slightly larger ones but are still not exactly full corporations. And then a lot of, I don't know if the word is vocational, but it's basically a lot of volunteer work where they do their best to try to raise funds and participate and help out in different ways.
Yeah, I think that's always like that's always been my favorite part of Pride marches or Pride March celebrations in recent years are the efforts to give a small like sales space for different independent Pride creators, small businesses, and the like. And there's a lot of love in those people, and we always made an effort to try to buy stuff. Hence our many Pride flags, pins, stickers, and things that we've acquired over the years just to support that. So then I don't know if that's enough, like in the sense that the companies that I am most comfortable with, not even companies, but the business entities I am most comfortable with, where I believe that they walk the talk, are literally businesses run by fellow members of the community, which are rarely big things. They're more likely small initiatives, online shops only, essentially a creator just selling what they make, whether it's on Facebook or Instagram or whatnot. And this isn't necessarily bad. It's just kind of sad because it's not necessarily a big company thing. And then on a similar note, I was thinking like we don't have an organization locally like GLAD where they actively monitor media in America and give sort of ratings and discussions on how well things are represented. Because I don't think it's easy for anyone to really think about like, do I support this business or that business based on their internal policies towards non-discrimination and gender identity and all these things, because the information is just not very public. Nobody's doing anything. At least I don't see organized effort to collate this data, make it public for the community so that we can better understand how different companies score in terms of how they're treating their employees. We see a lot of big statements from the likes of BPOs where, we're inclusive, we have these policies, but we know it's because their main office in the US or whichever country has those policies and they funnel down, which is not, it's still not a bad thing, but it doesn't necessarily reflect like the local community, the local business community as a whole. And I don't know, where to go with that. Like because GLAD in itself is essentially it's a not-for-profit organization.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of work to set up. Is there a similar NGO doing that kind of work here, or I don't know?
Or worse, there are, but not visible enough so people think nothing's happening, and
which is also sad.
that's one of the big problems with the Philippines. There are a lot of good actors out there, good agents who are trying to make a difference, um, but then either they're just not visible enough, they're choosing not to be visible because they'd rather work in the sidelines and
On
not
the
be,
grassroots
yeah,
level.
or
Yeah.
or they don't want to be spotlit in the sense that then if they get spotlit, it will be seen instead as some sort of manipulative ploy
Mm.
rather than this and that. And then lastly, those that are noticeable to some degree, the moment they have one thing a certain sector disagrees with, they're demonized for it.
Mm.
And um, while some deserve the negative press they get for betraying the community and suddenly siding with certain people in the government who shouldn't have been sided with, and we won't say who they are. There are others who um, possibly did a small faux pas by stating the wrong word or by um, doing the wrong event, and suddenly everything else they do now is tainted as wrong. So it's that tricky world out there. Um, I do believe there are companies locally that are trying to push for much more open-minded structures and systems wherein you know um, some are recognizing the long-term partners as family, and thus if there's something happening there, then consider it as part of the ganyang leave because
Mm.
because there are older companies I know of that if it's not something happening that, then spend the vacation leave for that.
Mm.
That doesn't count as an emergency because it's not within family or stuff like that. I know of some companies that have reached out to financially help employees who have their partners in a situation, and while the law does not recognize that union, they do their part to help out. So visibility is a thing. Optics, sadly, is driven in very many levels in this country because of the very diverse social circles. Social media savvy people have their own chain of information which is colored by their perspectives. The main media outlets have their own perspectives, in the end, they're still a business. So they still make a lot of decisions that help survive, keep their business alive, and not necessarily the truth and the whole truth. And then finally, you have the smaller media outlets or the smaller attempts to spread word, and they're not just as popular. Maybe they're not as controversial. Maybe they're not as aggressive. Maybe they're not as well connected. And so, while they are doing their part in helping share the message, most don't listen.
I mean, and we can look at weird like examples of inconsistency of company policy. Like just today, so there was, in local news, there was the big McDonald's BTS
Mm.
meal, and then you got a lot of people on social posting about ordering it, whether they ordered directly or through a delivery partner like Food Panda or Grab, and then getting it. And then there's a weird sub segment of like there were some Grab drivers that were making fun of the meal, and basically it was a homophobic joke
Mhm.
type thing. And then Grab is immediately like release a statement that we're all about inclusivity, blah blah blah. These partners have been deactivated from the system. But you know, I don't necessarily think that immediately means that Grab has like a robust policy to protect or to recognize its LGBTQI plus employees
Mm.
because, well, one, delivery partners, quote unquote, the actual delivery people are not full time employees, and
Yes.
most often they're essentially contractors, who don't. I don't think in the training they receive from Grab will include things like that sort of gender sensitivity and inclusivity thinking, and so
To be more blunt, I dare say more than 90% of the companies in the Philippines don't have gender sensitivity and inclusivity training.
yeah, or policies related to it, and it's because it's just easier to sort of remain silent on it and not think about it and just say that existing could because to be fair you take just everybody takes their cue from the law, and at a national level, the law doesn't officially recognize us. We're not even defined
Mm.
um, from that perspective as existing. So I know I forget what the exact bill was a few years ago, where it was something about wanting to ban or to prevent something involving members of the LGBTQI plus community, and um, I was semi excited for it only because if the bill did pass through, it included in its definition
Mhm.
what it means to be gay, lesbian,
Mhm.
bisexual, transgender. And thus, even though it was a negative bill banning certain acts, I really can't remember what it was, but indirectly, it was defining the community from a legal perspective.
And by being defined, you then have
You open
an
the laws.
existence
Yeah.
that,
Open the doors
that
for
cannot
stuff.
be ignored, and that existence therefore can be protected further.
Needless to say, they realized this mistake and the bill did not get through the committee level. But it's like little things like that. And we haven't really seen a lot of victory, whether for or against.
Mhm.
The anti discrimination bill against like soji related discrimination is just still floating around and it's never going to see priority because it's it's literally not. It's not a priority, and people misunderstand it, and people think that soji is just something for gay people, so to speak.
Mm.
When it's not, as everyone has soji, and as we discussed in our previous soji episode at the start of the month, but it's a complex thing to understand.
Yeah, Mitch asks if it was the CR thing.
Oh, it may have been. It may have been something about like banning.
Usage.
The improper term,
we,
yeah.
we,
Of,
we
like,
can we can just leave it at that, at the risk of.
it was a bathroom bill. Yeah, it
Yeah.
probably was a bathroom bill, and that's a more easily understood reference. So,
So let's try to bring this then to a more personal level in hopes that it can be something then that feels less too big and unsurmountable.
okay,
What can you do to help encourage or to help build a much more, I guess, present mindset or sensitivity in your company when it comes to these? For example, in my case, uh, there back when it was not yet everyone's remote, so pre-COVID, I actually made a point to celebrate Pride Month in the company, even if no one else really knew what it was. And I was taking that as a chance to talk about Stonewall. I was taking it as a chance to talk about why LGBT. Sorry, I keep messing up the full thing.
it's gotten very long.
Yeah, but why equal rights is needed. I always shared with them the scenarios of, if I got into the hospital and you were there, you would not be considered family despite how long we've been together. And for many of my office mates, they were like, "What? Ganun yun?" And then some would of course cite, and many cite, but di ba common law is ganyan years? And I'm like,
We're not recognized by common law.
it doesn't happen for homosexual partners because even common law states a man and a woman.
Yeah, it all boils down to the family code, guys.
And all of that was in their own way eye-opening for them. Maybe it didn't go all the way to the point that they were now much more sensitive about things, but they did suddenly have this realization of, okay, so that's why pride is happening, because there are really still inequalities that are out there, and they're so normal that people think it's fine, and they don't realize that there's a lot of injustice that has to be changed, and sometimes um, talking about it is needed. So I started to do that in the company. There were people who are now more curious about it. I even had some who sort of had that moment of, okay, so that opens my mind more. Doesn't dress this way, then isn't really this and that.
Hi,
But
we're back.
that's not how it really works.
Yeah.
Uh,
So
so-
I think education is definitely
Mhm.
an important piece, and I think it's the big rallying cry that we need to really perpetuate. And
Mhm.
whether it starts on a very quote unquote local level, if it's just within your immediate team at work and your supervisor and making sure they understand your concerns, or and it doesn't mean that you're going to preach at any random moment, but
Mm.
if there is a logical opportunity to segue and introduce these topics of discussion, or to clarify misconceptions, or to
Mm.
explain why something is wrong, then take the opportunity, step forward, and try to make that step. So even in today's example of
Mm.
like Grab deactivating the partner accounts of those who made the jokes, but did we do anything to educate them?
Yes.
Do they even understand why they're being deactivated?
The worst thing that many don't realize is if you just punish, then you just build resentment, and all the more the people who were punished will think, then why should I respect you? Why should I, cardinal punishment does not work the same way it does to kids when it comes to adults. For kids, they will be evasive. I won't do that anymore, or I'll do that in secret. For adults, all the more I'll do it because you did that to me also.
Mm-mm.
They become very defensive. They become very protective. So like at work, I have had some instances where in some coworkers, it's lunch break, and then I overhear them while they're talking at the table, and it's a lot of homophobic jokes.
Mm-mm.
And I approached them and I was like, guys, I know this is just all fun for you guys, but medyo nakakasama sa akin yung sinasabi niyo. And it was uncomfortable, yes, but later on they kind of realized that perspective that a lot of things that might be just jokes isn't necessarily bad. But if I approached them and started calling them homophobic and this and that, that wouldn't have helped them see why it was affecting me bad. They would have just made me the overly sensitive person that they'll hate.
Yeah, and I see this challenge on social media a lot. When the immediate reaction is to get mad at mistakes and whatever slights against perceived slights against the community, and then resort to name calling, insulting, swearing.
Mm.
It doesn't start. It doesn't perpetuate. Sorry, it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't drive a conversation. It doesn't drive education. It doesn't drive lasting and meaningful change. It just draws the lines deeper into the sand and separating us from them. And I don't know if that's really the approach. So when we think about things like that, and then this episode talking about trying to get meaningful engagement from corporations, that's probably not the way to do it.
Mm.
And if you're irrational, if you're just angry, then I don't think anything meaningful is going to happen. Because at the same time, even very emotional statements like calling for boycotts of companies
Mhm.
over this or that, a boycott only has meaningful impact if enough people do it
Mhm.
for a significant sustained period of time, and just not doing it this month won't make a difference. And
Mhm.
the fact that a lot of these weird behaviors have continued just shows that we have not actually managed to organize actual effective boycotts, because on an everyday perspective, people may not be in a position to stop working with certain companies or
Mhm.
stop supporting certain businesses, or just don't know because of the social media echo chamber, where only you and your like-minded friends are saying the same thing, but the rest of the world doesn't understand what you're
And,
talking
and
about.
you're saying it to the same group of people
Mm.
because they're the ones who can see your updates.
Yeah, and if it's like was this, and if you weren't exactly actively purchasing or paying that company for its services or products before, saying you're boycotting now is not really a boycott,
Mhm.
because you're not taking any money away. You're just still not giving them money, so that's not really a boycott, and things like that. So um, uh, and then I guess, but still, this is not to decry or to belittle the impact of social media discourse when it comes to corporate speak, when it comes to how companies address the LGBTQI plus community, how companies address pride, how companies engage with pride as a message. And I think there's still a channel for it. For me, I just advocate that it has to be a meaningful conversation, or it has to go somewhere. If it's just um, if it's just a lot of ranting, then it really doesn't go anywhere.
Mhm.
And I don't know. So you'll feel a little better on a personal level for having gotten it out of your system. And I can't deny that value of social media. But at the same time, don't think that just having said your piece means that yay, homophobia has been solved. That's not the case.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't know. And then I guess, and then from beyond that is if you do know of LGBTQI QIA plus businesses, business operators, companies, and the like, then yes, by all means, do what you can to support them when you
Yes.
can. Buy stuff from them, recommend them to your friends, and all these things. So I definitely support that, and we may not always have the money for it, especially in this 1+ year quarantine for the pandemic. We're
Mhm.
not, we're definitely not as liquid as we used to be pre-pandemic. But support when you can, and then a lot of these businesses um, don't even market. They don't
Mhm.
even have ads. So even just resharing their posts, share, sharing word of mouth that you enjoyed this or that product,
Mhm.
definitely a good thing. And so support local LGBTQI plus businesses, even if it just by business I mean this one girl creating stickers from her home.
Mhm.
They need all the love and all the support, and even just sharing their social media posts to help expand their reach, to get them maybe to widen their audience and hopefully get more people engaged with their products, then that's a good thing.
Mhm.
I mean, because if we don't necessarily know which big businesses support the community very well, at the very least we can support the small ones that are very clearly actively
Mhm.
engaged with the community. Um, I guess that's like top of my mind. Anything else that you want to cite?
I guess in line with the education, or at least trying to be part of the conversation and helping them get a better grasp of things. Um, be be aware that one, it shouldn't only happen in Pride Month.
Mm,
Um, so this includes if suddenly they're um, they're celebrating a certain holiday, or they're um, having fun at the expense of this new commercial or this new concept, and then you notice it has certain undertones that are wrong in that aspect, then whether or not it's Pride Month, don't just limit yourself to Pride Month. Speak up about it, open a conversation. Don't make enemies. You want them to understand. You don't want them to hate you.
mm-mm.
But then it goes to the point as well of don't feel limited that it only has to be in Pride Month when it comes to corporate stuff. So maybe you can talk to the company about considering opening their doors to having more soji related training. There are groups that are more than willing to help companies introduce the concept to their employees to become aware of that sensitivity. Maybe it's not just limited to um, the more direct lesbian and gay angles. Maybe it's about being more sensitive to people who are trans, or to um, the idea. Sorry, not the idea, but the fact that non-binary genders do exist, because the idea is still hard for very many people to
That's
grasp,
true.
and sometimes just that conversation can be a huge thing, and you don't have to wait for Pride for that. Um, I remember I had a similar conversation with some office mates when we were discussing it. And it did start, of course, with the pronoun question of,
Mm.
I don't understand why it's such a big deal. And I just threw back gently that, well, how would you feel if someone started just referring to you as she? And he was like, parang, well, it's wrong. And I'm like, exactly. It's that simple. It's
Mm-mm.
wrong. And that's all that we are asking, that, if you made a mistake, then you correct it. And then many were raising the usual questions of, but now it's so scary because what if I make a mistake? And I'm like, then you apologize and you do better. It's that simple. But I understand the fear because many have been attacked for making the mistake. And um, while I do not expect to change the mindsets of those who feel that we've had enough and aggression is now the only recourse to get the message across, um, I do not choose to be one of those people. I will choose to be the one who will try to reach out and have a conversation, who will try to help understand and be understood. There's this adage wherein when people talk, there's someone expected to listen. And when you listen, are you listening because you're planning a response, or are you listening because you want to learn?
Mm.
And sadly, when aggression is present, it's always to respond. And it's very, very rarely to learn. And that is why I will never choose aggression as the primary means of communication. So I feel to end this, at least in my end, when it comes to corporations, it will feel like an uphill battle.
Mm.
Most corporations, most companies, um, to put it very bluntly, it's not their problem. They'll say, we don't have that many employees, so we're like that. Or, our company is a very family oriented family, so we don't think about stuff like that. Those are all uphill battles that you will have to be ready for if you choose to have that conversation.
If anything, which I feel like reflects sort of the general atmosphere in the country, is that a lot of corporations aren't necessarily homophobic, but are aggressively neutral
Yes.
when it comes to things related to the community. And it's and normally you would say that neutrality is not bad, but at the same time, it's also not good.
Mhm.
It's not helpful. And it's hard to get a company in that direction of being passive and neutral to at least being more supportive.
Mhm.
It's the difference of saying the community, is fighting for equality versus for fighting for tolerance.
Yes.
Tolerance is not even the bare minimum anymore.
Yes.
Tolerance in itself is still sort of passive aggressive,
Mhm.
because it sort of implies that they're just putting up with us, that they just
Mhm.
are enduring us and not necessarily supporting us. And it's just the reality that a lot of companies aren't there yet, and
Mhm.
it's going to take a lot more work to show that the community exists, that it's not just a bunch of people choosing
Mhm.
to behave in a certain manner, and that we're not going to go away, that that they will eventually have to do something about it and recognize our needs and rights as a community. So it's a very long conversation. It's a
Yes.
very, very long conversation, but we have to be vigilant, we have to be consistent, but we also have to be patient, and like we continue to engage other people in a manner that we do try to communicate and try
Mhm.
to reach them on a level they understand, and not just be dismissive or overly aggressive.
We have to accept the fact as well that a lot of this are seeds we are planting that we might not be the ones to harvest.
Mm.
Um, I guess to close for me, um, ever since I've chosen to be more conversant about it with people in the company, um, I have, um, I'd like to say that I've noticed that there has been also a more noticeable shift in terms of sensitivity with my coworkers.
Mm.
New coworkers, it always feels like the ball fell down again, and you have to now roll it back up because
Okay.
you're starting again from scratch.
Yeah.
But then you start to notice that there are other people who have picked up what you've tried to share before, and stuff as simple as you have a new employee. Um, let's say the employee tends to dress a certain way. You'll have some people already going, oh, bakla ba yan? Ganyan, ganyan. And then you'll hear some of your older friends who you've spoken with already, guys, don't do that. They'll tell us when they're ready.
Mm-mm.
And it's those small moments that you realize it might not seem like much, but then the people you've helped get a better understanding of things, they're sharing that with people they know who are beyond the company. They're possibly sharing that with their kids, with their apos.
Their
And
families.
those are next generation people who are now growing up with a better understanding of sensitivity than we had when we were growing up. And it's not that our parents were at fault, they didn't know better.
Yeah.
So, accept the fact that we are planting seeds that we might not sow. Corporations are one place we can target because at least we're there long enough to see if we are making a difference. Um, and in the end, I guess, celebrate love.
Quack, quack, quack.
I think that's all the time we have for this episode. Admittedly, it's heavier than expected.
Well, I knew this would be heavy, but
But
that's how it
Friday
is.
episodes tend to be a little bit more emotional, and that's with good reason. Um, Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And we know this topic isn't that popular or that interesting, but who knows? Maybe it will help people who find it, and that's good enough for us. Um, but yeah, that's all the time we have for this episode, and we hope you enjoyed it.
So, for questions or suggestions for future episodes or ideas on like how you want to help raise awareness and drive education in your company, then feel free to use the Google form at bit.ly Baduy Pride Ideas. You can follow us on Twitter, Altobi No Shade, RG Sunico.
You could also check out our blog, badaypray.com, for all the previous episodes and stuff about us.
So feel free to continue the conversation below. And what are you doing for Pride? What companies do you think deserve some recognition for what they're doing, or what local businesses do you want to support? Feel free to plug, and we'll try to get everybody connected. And be sure to subscribe for notifications, whether on Facebook or YouTube, so you don't miss our next live stream. Once again, I'm Rocky,
And I'm Toby.
and this is Baduy Pride. Good night, everyone. See